I used to think people overreacted to being cheated on, until it happened to me. I walked into my own apartment, the one I paid for, and there she was, wrapped up with some guy in our bed. But I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, head tilted, like I was watching a mildly interesting science experiment. They didn't notice me at first. He was too busy enjoying himself, and she too busy pretending. But the second her eyes met mine, her face drained of color. The guy? He froze like a deer in headlights, his brain scrambling for an exit strategy. Don't stop on my account. It's your place now anyway. She stammered, struggling to find words. I didn't wait. I just gave her the coldest smile, turned around, and walked out, like I had just dropped off a package and had better places to be. I wasn't angry. Anger is impulsive, reckless. I prefer precision. And I had a plan forming in my mind before the door even closed behind me. You see, I own that apartment. Her name? Nowhere on the lease. Every single bill? In my name. She lived there because I let her. She existed in that space because I allowed it. And now, she had invited another man into my home, onto my bed, to enjoy the comfort that I provided. That was a mistake. A very, very expensive mistake. I didn't text her. Didn't call. Didn't rage post about it online like some pathetic fool seeking sympathy. No, I let her stew in uncertainty while I set everything in motion. I went straight to my lawyer and ensured that, legally, she had exactly 0 rights to stay in that apartment. Then, I made some calls, landlord connections come in handy, and within 3 hours, the locks were changed, security cameras were updated, and the building staff was instructed not to let her in under any circumstances. She didn't realize any of this until later that evening when she casually strolled back home, probably thinking she could sweet-talk or gaslight me into forgiving her. Her confidence must have shattered the moment her key didn't turn. I watched it all unfold from my car, parked just far enough away to enjoy the view without being seen. She tried again, and again. Then she knocked. Then she banged. Then she called me. That was my cue. I answered on the second ring, keeping my voice calm, detached. Something wrong. There was a beat of silence, like she couldn't believe I was actually playing dumb. Then came the faux innocence, the classic cheater's tactic of acting offended before admitting any guilt. Why is my key not working? I almost laughed. Your key? You mean the one to my apartment? Oh, that's simple. You don't live here anymore. The silence stretched so long that I could almost hear the gears grinding in her brain. Then, the inevitable. Wait, what do you mean? We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Your things are with your new boyfriend. I assumed that's where you wanted to be. I could hear her breath hitch, the dawning realization creeping in. The power shift was complete. She wasn't in control anymore. I was. And I wasn't giving her a single opportunity to manipulate the narrative. Where are my things? Her voice cracked slightly, the first hint of fear slipping through. Oh, don't worry. I took care of it. Everything you own is now at his place. You two looked comfortable enough, so I figured you'd appreciate the convenience. That's when the panic really set in. I could hear it, feel it, savor it. You're kidding, right? I almost pitted her. Almost. Go check for yourself. And then, I hung up. She tried calling back. Again. And again. Then came the texts. Some angry. Some begging. Some desperate attempts to twist the blame back on me. I ignored them all. I just sat there in my car, watching as she paced outside the building like a lost dog, completely unmoored. The same woman who had confidently betrayed me in my own home now had no home of her own. And the best part? This was only the beginning. I used to think I had it all figured out. My life was stable, predictable, and comfortably routine. I woke up every morning in an apartment that felt like home, not just because I owned it, but because it was ours. The scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen, the distant hum of the shower running as she got ready for work, the soft sound of her humming some song she'd get stuck in her head for days, it all blended into the kind of life that made you forget to question things. Mornings were always the same. I'd wake up first, make coffee the way she liked it, just a splash of cream, no sugar, and leave it on the counter before heading to the gym. By the time I got back, she'd be in the middle of her morning routine, wrapped in one of my oversized shirts, scrolling through her phone with that lazy smile that made it seem like the world was still half asleep. You always make the best coffee, she'd say, taking a sip like it was a small luxury, then give me that half-distracted kiss before heading off to work. It was comfortable. It felt like love. Evenings were our time. We had our little rituals. Tuesdays were takeout and a movie, always something she picked. Fridays were date nights, usually at that Italian place a few blocks down, where she always ordered the same thing, pasta with extra Parmesan, even though she always said she was trying to eat healthier. Sundays, we'd sleep in late, lounge around the apartment, talk about nothing and everything. She'd tell me about some drama at work, and I'd pretend to care about people I'd never met just because she liked having someone to vent to. It was easy. It was ours. Looking back, I can see the cracks now. Little things. Things that didn't seem important at the time but now stand out like neon signs in a dark room. Like how she started staying late at work more often, always some last-minute meeting, always an urgent deadline. At first, I didn't question it. She was ambitious, driven. I admired that about her. But then there were the nights when she'd come home with that slightly forced smile, like she was performing a version of herself. The kisses got quicker, the conversations a little shorter. And sometimes, when I kissed her goodnight, she'd turn away just a little too fast. Then there was the phone. The device that had once been an afterthought now never left her side. It used to sit face up on the counter, notifications lighting up the screen without a second thought. But then, one day, I noticed it was always face down. At first, I brushed it off. Privacy. No big deal. But then the screen time changed. She was on it more, but never when I was looking. Messages came in late at night, and she'd check them with a barely concealed urgency before tucking the phone under her pillow. And then there was the shift in affection. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable if you weren't paying attention. She still kissed me goodbye, still said, "I love you," but there was something missing, something intangible but unmistakable. It's funny how the absence of something is sometimes louder than its presence. I remember the last date night before everything fell apart. We went to our usual spot, sat at our usual table, ordered the usual meals. But for the first time, I noticed how often she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she smiled at the screen, a different kind of smile, one I hadn't seen in a while. The way her eyes flickered toward the entrance every time someone walked in, as if she was expecting or hoping to see someone else. I asked her about it, casually, not accusatory. "Everything okay?" She looked up, blinked, then laughed like I had said something ridiculous. "Yeah, of course. Why? You just seem a little distracted." She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. "I'm just tired. Work's been insane lately." And because I wanted to believe her, I did. Because the alternative meant facing something I wasn't ready to accept. That night, she fell asleep early, curled up on her side, facing away from me. I lay awake longer than usual, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I couldn't quite name. Not suspicion, not yet. Just a quiet, knowing sense that something had shifted. That maybe the life I thought was mine wasn't as solid as I believed. But I ignored it. Because routine has a way of making you blind to the things you don't want to see. Because when you think you have something good, your mind works overtime to explain away the inconsistencies. To justify. To believe. And that's exactly what I did. Right up until the moment I walked into my own apartment and saw her and him in the bed I had bought, in the sheets I had washed, in the space I had built for us. It's funny, in a way. You always think you'll react a certain way to betrayal, maybe with rage, maybe with heartbreak. But in that moment, standing in the doorway, watching my so-called perfect life disintegrate in front of me, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I felt clarity. Because suddenly, all those little moments, the late nights, the phone turned face down, the distant kisses, snapped into focus like pieces of a puzzle I had been too blind to put together. And instead of drowning in emotions, I did what I should have done a long time ago. I made a decision. And this time, I was in control. It started with something small. Something so insignificant that a different man might have ignored it. We were in the middle of dinner, nothing fancy, just a quiet night at home. She had made pasta, the same dish she always made when she was too tired to cook something elaborate, but still wanted to put in the effort. The apartment smelled like garlic and basil, the wine was half gone, and the mood was light. Normal. Then her phone buzzed. Not unusual. Her phone buzzed all the time. But this time, she reacted differently. Before, she would have just glanced at the screen, maybe even read the message out loud if it was something mundane. But this time, she stiffened. Her eyes flickered to the phone, then to me. A split second of hesitation, just long enough for me to notice. Then, just as quickly, she grabbed it, flipped it over, and forced a smile that was a little too tight. I took another sip of wine. "Who's that?" She didn't look up. Oh, just Sarah. Sarah. Her best friend. The kind of name that felt safe. A name I had no reason to question. Except, something was off. The way she had tensed up before answering. The way she didn't pick up the phone or check the message in front of me. The way she flipped it over instead of ignoring it. I let it slide for the moment, but my mind stored it, tucked it away in that quiet part of the brain that doesn't forget. The rest of the night went on as usual. We watched a movie, curled up on the couch, and she laughed at all the right parts. She kissed me goodnight like she always did. She fell asleep with her back against me, her body warm, familiar. But something in me was awake now, and I couldn't shake it. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was exactly what she said, just Sarah, some meaningless text about weekend plans. But it didn't sit right. And I don't ignore my instincts. The next day, I decided to test something. I waited until she was in the shower, her favorite part of the morning, where she blasted music and took forever getting ready. Her phone was on the nightstand, face down again. I picked it up. I didn't unlock it. Didn't go through it. That wasn't my style. I didn't need to. Instead, I pressed the side button to wake the screen. Just for a second. No notifications. No new messages. That in itself wasn't strange. What was strange was the fact that she always had some kind of notification, emails, Instagram, news alerts. But now? A completely blank screen. I set the phone down exactly as it was and walked away, my mind turning. By the time she stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, humming a song like everything was perfect, I already knew what she had done. She had silenced her notifications. Maybe even deleted the message thread. And that was the moment I knew, with cold certainty, that something was wrong. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation leads to lies, to gaslighting, to manipulation. I wanted clarity. I wanted truth. And truth is best revealed in silence. So I watched. The next few days, I noticed more things. Small things. Things that a man who trusted too much would have overlooked. Her phone, once a casual object, was now always with her. When she went to the kitchen, it came with her. When she went to the bathroom, same. Before, she would have left it on the coffee table, forgotten. Now, it was an extension of her hand. Then there were the workouts. She had never been the type to care much about the gym. She liked staying in shape, sure, but she wasn't obsessive. Then, out of nowhere, she suddenly needed to go to the gym every other night. Needed to take extra long runs, needed to leave the apartment for some fresh air after dinner. The first time, I didn't say anything. The second time, I made a casual remark. New fitness goals? She laughed it off, playful. Yeah, I guess. Just trying to be healthier. The third time, I watched her walk out the door, a gym bag slung over her shoulder, and I wondered if there was even a pair of sneakers inside. Because here's the thing. She always came back looking exactly the same. No post-workout exhaustion. No sweat. No tired but satisfied expression. Just the same forced smile, the same overly sweet tone, the same attempt at normalcy. By now, I wasn't just suspicious. I was certain. But certainty wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed proof. Solid, undeniable, humiliating proof. And when I got it, she would never see it coming. I was done believing in coincidences. When someone starts acting differently, there's always a reason. And I was going to find it. But I wasn't about to ask her. Asking leads to lies, to manipulation, to her taking control of the narrative. No, I needed proof, something undeniable, something I could throw in her face when the time was right. So I started watching her the way a hunter watches its prey. The gym routine was the first thing I tested. She always left at the same time, around 7 p.m., saying she'd be back in an hour or two. The first night, I let her go, waiting exactly 15 minutes before I grabbed my keys and left the apartment myself. I drove to the gym she claimed to be going to, parked a safe distance away, and waited. The entrance was in clear view. She never walked in. I sat there for almost an hour, watching as dozens of people came and went. But she never showed up. That was all the confirmation I needed. She was lying. The question was, where was she really going? The second test came when I asked her, casually, about her workouts. So, how was the gym? She didn't hesitate. Brutal. I did legs today. I'm gonna be sore tomorrow. There was no soreness. No stiffness in her walk. No complaints about stairs. Just another lie, told so smoothly that if I hadn't known better, I would have believed it. But I did know better. And the more I watched her, the more patterns started to emerge. Her phone, once an afterthought, was now practically glued to her hand. She used to leave it on the coffee table while we watched TV. Now, always in her pocket, always face down. The passcode changed, too. I noticed it when she unlocked it one night, a slight pause before she typed in the numbers, her fingers moving in a pattern I didn't recognize. I made a mental note. Then there were the late-night texts. I'd be brushing my teeth, and I'd hear the soft buzz of a message. Not the usual flood of group chats or Instagram notifications. This was different. She'd check it quickly, eyes flicking to me to see if I noticed. The moment I stepped closer, the phone would slip into her pocket. So I tested something else. One night, as she was brushing her hair in front of the mirror, I sat down beside her on the bed and casually asked, "Hey, can I borrow your phone for a sec? My battery's dead." It was an innocent request. A normal request. Her reaction? Not normal. She froze for half a second, just long enough for me to see the fear flash in her eyes. Then came the forced smile. "Oh, I'd let you, but I'm waiting for an important email from work." I didn't press. I just smiled, nodded, and said, "No problem." But in that moment, I knew. If she had nothing to hide, she would have handed it over without a second thought. But she didn't. Because she knew that one wrong swipe, one wrong notification, and her entire lie would come crumbling down. By this point, I wasn't just suspicious, I was certain. But certainty wasn't enough. I needed proof. Something that would destroy any chance of denial. So I played along. I became the perfect boyfriend, never accusing, never hinting that I knew. I still made her coffee in the mornings. I still listened to her stories about her stressful days at work. I still kissed her goodnight. Because I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to think she had me fooled. And in the meantime, I set a trap. The next time she went to the gym, I followed her again, but this time, from a distance. I tailed her car, keeping just far enough back that she wouldn't notice. She drove past the gym without hesitation, taking a different route, one that led into a quiet residential area on the other side of town. She pulled into a driveway, a house I didn't recognize. I watched as she sat there for a moment, glancing at her phone, maybe sending a message. Then, after one last look around, she got out of the car and walked to the door. And when it opened, a man was waiting for her. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just calm, cold calculation. She stepped inside. The door shut behind her. And just like that, I had my answer. I sat in my car, watching the house, feeling nothing but cold clarity. No more doubts, no more questions. This was it. The truth. She had walked through that door like she had done it 100 times before. No hesitation, no second guessing. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time thing. This was deliberate. This was betrayal. I glanced at the time. 7:42 p.m. She had left the apartment exactly 20 minutes ago, kissing me on the cheek before heading to the gym. My stomach twisted, not with pain, but with the sheer absurdity of it. How easily she had lied. How naturally it had come to her. I had sat there, played the devoted boyfriend, wished her a good workout, all while she was on her way to see him. The house was quiet. Lights dimmed. A single car in the driveway, his. I didn't need to see more to know exactly what was happening behind that door. I imagined the scene inside. The way she smiled at him, maybe the same way she used to smile at me. The way she touched him, laughed with him, whispered things in his ear, things she had probably once whispered to me. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, but I didn't feel rage. Rage is impulsive. Rage makes people stupid. I wasn't about to be stupid. Instead, I took out my phone. A few taps, and my camera was recording. I zoomed in, steady hands, capturing the moment the lights in the upstairs bedroom flickered on. I let the footage roll. No movement at the windows, no sudden appearance of her guilty face. She wasn't worried about being seen. She thought she was untouchable. That was going to change. I could have confronted her right then and there. Stormed up to the door, pounded on it, demanded an explanation. But what would that give me? Tears? Lies? Excuses? No, that wasn't my style. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling. I wanted her to be blindsided, just like I had been. I saved the video, ensuring it was backed up in multiple places. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called her. The phone rang once, twice, a third time. Then she picked up, her voice too normal, too casual. "Hey, babe." I almost laughed. "Babe." She was sitting in another man's house, in another man's bed, and she still had the audacity to call me that. "How's the gym?" I asked, keeping my voice even. There was a pause. Just a heartbeat too long. Then the lie came. "Good. Just finishing up. Probably heading home soon." I exhaled slowly, letting the silence stretch. She didn't even hesitate. She didn't even try to come up with something creative. Just the same old script, the same old lies. How many times had she done this before? How many times had I kissed her, touched her, slept next to her, completely unaware? "Good," I finally said. "Can't wait to see you." Her voice softened, like she actually believed she had fooled me. "Me too. I'll be home soon." I hung up before she could say anything else. Then I sat there, gripping the phone, my mind racing with the weight of it all. I had my proof. But now, I needed something more. Something that would ensure she didn't just lose me, but lost everything. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to make sure she regretted ever thinking she could do this to me. I drove back to the apartment in complete silence, my mind methodically constructing the blueprint of my revenge. This wasn't going to be a mindless explosion of rage. No screaming, no pleading, no pointless confrontations. That wasn't my style. I didn't want her to just feel guilty. I wanted her to feel powerless. I thought about her weaknesses. The things she cared about the most. The apartment? No. She hadn't fought to have her name on the lease, hadn't contributed to the bills beyond the occasional groceries. She had been comfortable living in a space I provided, trusting that I would always take care of things. That was going to be her first mistake. She had no claim, no leverage, no way to stop what was coming. Then, there was her social image. She had spent years curating the perfect narrative: sweet, devoted girlfriend, stable relationship, a woman who had it all. Her Instagram was a polished scrapbook of vacation photos, cozy couple pictures, and carefully posed brunch outings with her friends. She loved being seen as the woman who had her life together, the kind of woman others envied. And, of course, her new boyfriend. She had traded stability for excitement, but I doubted she had told him the full story. Did he know she still lived with me? That she still kissed me goodbye before running to his bed? That she was still eating dinners in my apartment while sneaking around behind my back? No, of course not. She would have painted herself as the victim, some tragic woman stuck in a stale relationship, forced to seek love elsewhere. That was going to be her second mistake. She had built a life on lies. I was going to burn it down with the truth. The first step was simple. I started with her things. Everything she owned in my apartment? Gone. I packed it all neatly into bags and boxes, not out of kindness, but because I wanted her to understand just how quickly she had been erased. No fights, no arguments, just silence. The locks were changed within the hour. By the time she tried to come home, she wouldn't have a home to return to. Then came the exposure. I drafted a message, not an angry rant, not an emotional plea, but a surgical, calculated strike. I gathered everything. The video of her arriving at his house, the text she had sent me while she was inside, the proof of her lies. Then, I carefully forwarded it to the right people. Her best friends, her family, even her coworkers, the ones she always bragged to about how solid our relationship was. I let the evidence speak for itself. No dramatic accusations, no insults, just the raw, undeniable truth. Let them decide what they thought of her. And finally, the last move. The part that would cut her deeper than anything else. I sent a message directly to him, her new secret boyfriend. It was simple. "Hey, man, thought you should know. You're not the only one." Attached were the screenshots of her messages to me from just days before, texts where she told me she loved me, where she planned our next vacation together, where she still pretended I was the only man in her life. I didn't even need to add a comment. Let him realize, on his own, that she was a liar. Let him question everything. Let him feel the same betrayal I had felt. Then, I turned off my phone. No arguments. No explanations. No second chances. By the time she walked up to the apartment later that night, expecting to slip into her comfortable lie, she found the locks changed, her belongings missing, and her world collapsing in real time as her phone exploded with the fallout of everything I had done. And me? I was already gone. She had played me. Now, I had played her. And I had won. The execution had to be perfect. No way out, no denials, no desperate attempts at gaslighting. She had spent months weaving a web of lies, thinking she was untouchable, thinking I was just another fool who would never see the truth. She was wrong. By the time she pulled into the apartment parking lot, my plan was already in motion. I had changed the locks hours ago, packed up every single thing she owned, and delivered them straight to her new boyfriend's house, the same one she had been sneaking off to under the excuse of working late or hitting the gym. The same house she had walked into so confidently, completely unaware that I had been watching. The best part? I had texted him right before she got there. Hey man, since she's spending so much time at your place, I figured she might as well live there. Her stuff is on your front porch. Enjoy. It was almost poetic. She had betrayed me in my own home, so I took hers away from her in one stroke. But that was just the beginning. She parked the car and walked up to the door like it was any other night, probably expecting to shower, crawl into my bed, and pretend like she hadn't spent the last few hours with another man. The second she tried her key and found it wouldn't turn, the first crack formed in her perfect little world. I watched from a distance, sitting in my car, just far enough to enjoy the show. At first, she assumed she had the wrong key. She tried again, then a third time. Then I saw the realization set in, the stiffness in her posture, the way her shoulders tightened. She knew something was wrong. Her phone came out next. She called me. I let it ring. Then she knocked. Then banged. Then, after a full minute of standing there in silence, she checked her phone again. That's when she saw the messages. First, the one from me. A simple, direct message. You don't live here anymore. Then, the group chat. The one where I had forwarded the proof of her affair to her closest friends and family. Screenshots, videos, timestamped messages. No explanations. No embellishments. Just cold, undeniable truth. I watched as she scrolled through, her hands shaking, her breathing quickening. Her entire social world was collapsing right in front of her, and she had no way to stop it. The people she had carefully maintained her image with, her best friend, her sister, her coworkers, they all saw her for exactly what she was now. A liar. A cheater. A fraud. She tried calling me again. Declined. Then she tried texting. A flood of desperate messages. Babe, what is this? We need to talk. This isn't fair. You're overreacting. It's not what it looks like. Please just let me explain. Where are you? I let her panic. Let her sit in the wreckage she created. Then, for the final touch, I sent one last message. Your stuff is at his place. I assume that's where you're sleeping tonight. And that was it. Checkmate. I watched as she stood there, staring at her phone, the weight of everything crashing down on her at once. Nowhere to go. No one to lie to. No escape. She had gambled everything on the belief that I would never find out, that even if I did, I would crumble, beg, give her a second chance. But instead, I had ripped away everything she thought was secure. Then, as if on cue, her phone rang. I didn't need to hear the conversation to know exactly what was happening. It was him, the other man, and he had just received the same proof I had sent everyone else. She wasn't just losing me, she was losing him too. I watched as she answered, tried to explain, tried to spin the situation in her favor. But you can't talk your way out of hard evidence. Whatever illusion she had fed him was breaking apart just as fast as her life was unraveling. I saw the way she held her head in her hands, the way she started pacing, her voice rising in desperation. He wasn't buying it. And just like that, the final piece fell into place. She was alone. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, leaving her standing there, a silhouette in the cold glow of the streetlights, clutching her phone like it was the last thing tethering her to reality. She thought she was playing a game. She just didn't realize I was the one setting the rules. I didn't need to see the rest. I already knew how this would end. She would stand there, frozen, staring at her phone as message after message flooded in, some from her friends, some from her family, and then the worst one of all, him. The other man. The one she had thrown everything away for. But now, he wasn't her escape. He wasn't her safe place. He was her final mistake. I watched from my rearview mirror as she paced outside the apartment, gripping her phone like it could somehow undo the damage. She tried calling again. This time, I answered. But I didn't speak. I just let the silence stretch, let her feel the weight of it. Let her sit in the reality she created. Her voice cracked first. Please, talk to me. I didn't respond. She exhaled, shaky, desperate. I know you're angry, but we can fix this. It wasn't what you think. That almost made me laugh. Wasn't what I think? I had seen her walk into his house. I had the proof. I had the messages. She wasn't even trying to deny it. just scrambling, trying to find an angle, a way to spin the situation in her favor. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was sorry she got caught. I finally spoke, my voice calm, measured. You don't live here anymore. Silence. A long, cold silence. Then came the panic. Wait, what do you mean? This is my home too. We have to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. She wasn't used to this. She was used to control. She was used to being the one with the power, the one who could manipulate emotions, twist the truth, make herself the victim. But now, she had nothing. Her breath hitched. I could hear the tremble in her voice. You don't understand. It was just. I made a mistake. I love you. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to? I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. You didn't mean to walk into another man's house? Didn't mean to lie to me, over and over again? She started talking faster, her words tumbling over each other. I was confused. I thought maybe we were in a rut, and I didn't know how to bring it up, and I cut her off. So instead of talking to me, you ran to him. Silence again. She knew there was no good answer to that. Then, the breakdown started. The moment she realized there was no way out, her voice cracked. I don't have anywhere to go. And there it was. The truth, stripped of excuses. She wasn't crying because she had lost me. She was crying because she had lost everything. I let her sit with that for a second before I answered, my voice steady. Not my problem. Her breath came in short, desperate gasps. I can't go to my parents. They'll see what you sent. My friends won't even answer me. He won't talk to me. That part wasn't a surprise. I knew exactly what had happened. The moment her new boyfriend saw the proof, the screenshots of her still telling me she loved me while sneaking into his house, he had realized the truth. She wasn't just a cheater. She was a liar, through and through. And men like him? They don't stick around when the illusion shatters. I heard her sniffle, the weight of it all finally crushing her. Please. I just need to talk to you. I don't know what to do. That's when I smiled. Because now, she understood. Now, she knew what it felt like to be powerless. To have her world ripped away without warning. To be left standing in the cold, with no one to turn to, no one to help her, no one to believe the story she so carefully crafted. I leaned back in my seat, exhaling slowly. Then, finally, I answered. Not my problem, I repeated, my voice firm. Figure it out. And then, I hung up. She called back immediately. Again. And again. I turned my phone off and drove away, leaving her exactly where she deserved to be. Alone. Time passed. Life settled down, became even better than before. I had regained my freedom, my peace, and most importantly, my self-respect. No more doubts, no more uneasy feelings, no more questioning whether the person next to me was hiding something behind a smile. No more suspicions, no more lies. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely in control of my own life. What happened to her? Honestly, I didn't care anymore. I heard from mutual acquaintances that she tried to start over, looking for a new job, new people, new opportunities. That she had tried reaching out to me through indirect means, but I never responded. Everything she once had was gone. She could never return to her old life because her old life no longer existed. The irony? She had a chance to keep it all. It was simple. All she had to do was be honest. But she made a different choice. A choice that came with a price. Some might say my revenge was too harsh. That I should have just walked away, ended the relationship, and never looked back. But here's the question. Why do cheaters always expect to leave gracefully, while leaving destruction behind them? Why do they think they deserve a peaceful exit after lying, betraying, and manipulating? They expect forgiveness because it's convenient for them. But sometimes, the truth has a price. And I simply made sure she paid it. Now I have a question for you. If this had happened to you, would you have simply walked away and moved on? Or would you have done everything in your power to make sure the person who betrayed you truly understood the weight of their actions? I know what choice I made. What would you have done?